that way people will be able to hear it at home and.
Okay.
The thousands that are tuning in.
The
Well,
first
I
thing
know
we
that there are
need,
at least a few people who are watching because,
God bless them.
the first thing we need to do is election of officers. And I think that you should run that because you're not on the committee, so.
Sure, do you wanna go around and just introduce everybody again, just one more time? Just,
Oh, introduce
yeah, just.
Sure.
That'd be a good way to start.
Elaine Pluta,
Kip Foley.
Andrew McMahon.
Anya Duffy.
Mike Falsetti, the housing representative.
Mimi Panich.
Are we gonna wait a few minutes, or are we gonna call our meeting to order? I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
normally we could wait, but if
It's
the city, in 30 minutes, if the city council is gonna be walking in, I'm not sure they're gonna want us to be here.
well,
We should call it.
Kevin's aware,
Yeah.
Kevin knows that you guys will be here till 7, so I wouldn't.
Oh, it's a,
We rarely get started right on time.
well, can we hold election of officers when all of us aren't here yet? That's the key.
Have we
I
set
mean,
up the
there's-
committee sufficiently to know what our officers are gonna be even?
Yeah, there is a
Chairman and
quorum.
vice chairman.
I mean, there is a quorum, but
Yeah, chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, and secretary,
Okay.
who would work with.
yes,
directly
which
with
I am comfortable with, but I was not aware that the group as a whole had made a decision about the
quorum.
the form of the committee, who the officers would be. I mean,
No,
Well,
we
it's
didn't do that.
Robert's Rules of Order.
That's what we need to do now. We need to vote.
we don't
Election.
necessarily need a treasurer and secretary, is that what you're saying?
well,
Well-
no, I think we absolutely need a treasurer.
Oh, yeah,
But
absolutely.
that is what she's saying. She's saying it's up to us to decide
have
what we need,
many
and I think all
others.
those are great.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, we
That's
definitely.
I think it's
Yes,
fair
we
for
need,
them to have a chair.
Yeah, but I think the
Is it
treasurer
officially
is,
called to order yet?
yeah.
No,
well, we have nobody to officially call it
that's
to
part
order,
of
but
the,
if you want to do that, or do you want us to do that?
Well,
I think you guys should.
Okay, let's officially call this meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is the election of officers, and that's what we're discussing right now, is the format. And I think that we should take, we decided, I guess, on the four offices, because we need a vice chair in case
You
the
wanna
chair's
propose it?
not
they'll
here.
make a motion to
To
have those.
have those four, sure, I'll make that motion to have
I second
four
it.
four positions, chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, and secretary. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so then, the next part would be to, take nominations from the.
if I
from
may,
the group.
before we
Yes, you
get
may.
that far, I think, at least on planning board, and I assume on the other agencies, we have term limits for these positions. Or
We have what?
we have specified terms, and in our case at least, we also have rules about how long people can serve in them. And since we are establishing positions, it might be worth asking whether it is the group's will to have open periods for people to serve in these positions, or whether we want to say we will hold annual elections.
I propose we limit every position as we're initially starting this committee to 1 year.
Second.
Yeah, I agree with that. Favor?
Aye.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, the election of officers, is that, are you all set?
Yeah,
Mhm,
so
thank you.
first we'll take nominations for chair.
This young man,
Okay,
I forget your first name.
Andrew?
Andrew. I'd like to have Andrew nominate him as the chairman.
Second?
anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, so vice chair,
Thank you.
I'll take nominations for vice chair.
Nominate Elaine.
Second?
Favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Secretary,
I nominate Ms. Panich.
second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And treasurer.
It's not
Hey,
here.
who would like
Yeah,
to be
who's-
treasurer?
Kevin is leaving.
No,
Is anybody here without?
Yeah, who's not here?
I would temporarily wouldn't mind holding it to keep it moving. I am a government accountant by trade, and I think I could move this along until we are a viable entity.
I would be grateful, yes.
that would fight that.
Thank you.
Second, I'll second that motion.
We're gonna hold off on the position of treasurer.
Treasurer for now.
Just let me,
Yeah.
if anybody wants to do it, they can jump in.
Right, well, don't.
So
Not
that
to worry.
temporary treasurer,
Yeah.
acting treasurer.
I'm
Well,
acting treasurer.
let's ask this, would you prefer to be treasurer than chair?
I think I could do chair
Chair
with,
both? Okay,
yeah.
Absolutely.
fine,
Please tell me.
that's great. Okay.
So
Second.
nominate Andrew as acting treasurer.
Second?
All All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so that
There you
takes
go.
care of that item.
And, you know, perhaps if you don't
So
mind,
now you're-
Jeremy, people who want to learn enough to eventually take some of the weight off you,
I
can
would-
perhaps,
Be very open to that.
Yeah,
It's
you can do a
second
little
nature to me
teaching
at this
here.
point, but I'll try to be very clear about how I come up with everything that we do.
I love it, thank you.
That's great.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to go over the?
Yes,
Yes.
that's up to him now, he follows the agenda.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is our committee budget. Since our last meeting, I reached out to the city assessor, Mr. Tony DeLude, and asked for an estimate of the revenues for 2018. Mr. DeLude provided me with a number of $450,000. I broke the appropriations up into the three Community Preservation Committee areas: historic, community housing, and open space, by the state mandate that we move at least 10% into each of those areas if we want to utilize them over the course of the year. 5% has been allotted to administrative. The remaining,
Where is that on?
right at the top line of the
That
22,000.
22.5 is, okay.
And the remaining funds from our estimate is down in the reserve. Anything that would not be utilized out of these four set-aside budgets would just fall back into the reserve. And throughout the year, we could also vote to move reserves up into these accounts as needed. This is a requirement to present to the city council by the December meetings in order to establish our 2018. As we also said, the collections are gonna be later in a year, so this is really merely an administrative exercise. I think a lot of it is going to be creating our agendas and our charters and brochures. But anyway, so I move that we forward this budget to the city council for consideration.
I second that.
Discussion?
Seems straightforward to me.
I like that there's flexibility in it, that you
Yeah.
can move things.
So the balance, Mr. Chairman, is 292
That is what is in the reserve, yes.
for 18. Okay.
Because we set, so 10% has to be set into each of the three areas. We are doing that with this. And I will also say again, this is an estimate.
Right,
If it comes in higher or lower, we can stick to the 10% rule.
yep.
This is fiscal 2018, which ends in June 30th,
Yes, and
2018.
okay.
Good deal.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're gonna present, you need a copy of this too?
Sure, so I'll put that in as soon as a communication to the council for the next meeting.
Yes.
Or, I would wait, excuse me? Excuse me if I may, not tonight, right?
No,
No.
I stand for the next one.
Yes, because I don't want it to be a late file thing, I want it to be, an agenda item, yes, okay, so, okay. All right.
I'll talk to
Okay.
Kevin and see what the best way to get
And Ms. Chair, would you just keep me on with the rules of the committee? I know you're experienced in this. Okay. The next item up for consideration is a CPA flyer being distributed on the next tax bill.
Copy of that?
Yeah, the flyer is up 10 around.
Is it? See, is it, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's a check, jeez, sorry about that, checklist. I didn't see a flyer here, Brian,
Is it attached to this?
is it in the back?
No, this is the application
No,
exemption.
did I take it? I took your,
It doesn't feel like we've created one yet.
yes, we didn't create it, it was created by the assessors. Debbie Brunel, she created a flyer to be able to explain everything about the CPA, and my suggestion is that they send that out with the next tax bill, which will save us a lot of trouble from having to go around and explain this, although we should be available, all of us, to explain it
Oh,
to
yeah.
anyone who requests it, and maybe we can do like the senior center or whatever, but in any place else who requests it, but basically, it's gonna be a controversial issue because it's gonna be only 2 bills instead of 4, that it's gonna be spread out. And we need to explain that so people won't say, oh my God, when they see their tax bill.
Well, that's, where does the CPA come from? I printed this offline, and this is basically answers that question.
Right, well, but we know that. We know where it comes from.
Is that the flyer you're referring to?
No. You don't know what she did with it?
But yeah, I had it out.
We must have.
Which one is it?
No, none of these. We moved it somewhere, unfortunately. Sorry about that, Brian. Ryan, I keep calling him Brian. Ryan, I'm sorry.
Okay. I believe this is what she had passed out to me and provided, yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is everything that she provided to me.
Okay, so is the flyer in here?
Yeah, because there is a thing on exemption. Yeah, and then there's the forms that they have to fill out.
So this whole thing is the flyer?
That's what she provided to me.
That's a bit. Yes, come up here.
Hey, how's it going?
Yes, Kevin, and you should introduce yourselves now, because we have to. Oh, we did election of officers, so.
Oh, good.
You're the treasurer.
Am I? I don't, no titles for me, thanks.
Me either.
Yeah,
So somehow we have to make
I'm
this,
sailing off into the sunset.
I would suggest that somehow we reduce this so that it could go into a bill.
Oh, I agree. This is pretty much the brochure.
Yeah, I guess this is what they were, remember he was telling us, the trainer, he said that she had mentioned she had a flyer ready to explain things.
Yeah, this looks like what they would give the public, right here.
Right, but
The things you
Yeah.
need
do
to do.
we wanna do this whole 5 pages of, just check this out first, take this home as homework and look at it and see.
She wants us to approve it.
No,
Does anyone know when the deadline would be to approve a flyer for
the next bill goes out in January.
okay, so we have a little time to refine this.
Correct, yep, due for February 1st.
Right. And in that bill will be a double fee.
Yeah,
So that's why we definitely need to include something in that bill. But I don't know if we.
Is this it? I mean, is this?
Well, I think this is a bit much, you know? I think we need to condense it, so maybe we can take it home and I'll look at it and see what parts that would be helpful to the public to know. You know, like, well, the exemptions are important to know, I guess.
well, and I think we also want, as it were, one sheet saying, here's what this is,
If you want an
Yes.
exemption.
and, you know,
If you want
there
this
are
form.
exceptions available, here's where to go for them.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly,
here's why we're doing this in the first place.
right, exactly, yeah, that makes sense.
Before, no Josie, no Nelson tonight.
Got a lot of homework.
A bulleted list of simplifying it.
I agree. We should push this to at least the next meeting in 2 weeks. And maybe on the website, half the towns in the state are doing this. Let's see what else is going on.
Yep.
Probably a trifle brochure out there somewhere.
Yeah, there's, definitely we should meet in 2 weeks. Last night, I would prefer. Tuesday, because we don't want to run, they have city council meetings every Tuesday.
Right, it's gotta be, yeah.
Yeah, and this was only because of the forum last night.
Right, exactly. Did anybody go? Okay.
How's that Cub Scouts?
I was at a football game. That's my new passion.
I did see it live, but I unfortunately had a sick dog. I tried to get out of the house, but man, that was not a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, I realize we're pressed for time, but I may be out of order, so just tell me, but I think, are we gonna have a website, a specific website for this committee, and that lists what we're doing, what our accomplishments, what do we have in revenue, or do we attach it to the City of Boydo's webpage?
So, I see that on here. We just say, we are going till 7, so we have 45 more minutes to get through these.
Okay.
The CPA, I'm going to motion that we table this for the next meeting in 2 weeks, pending some further review of our options for the flyer.
The flyer, yes, I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Favor?
Okay, item 4, discussion of rules and plans from other cities and towns.
Okay, that's what all this stuff is, it's different cities and towns, well, it's the open meeting law, because, and especially the 10 top meeting laws, open meeting laws that we need to know.
That's a good one.
And, the rest of them are all examples of other cities and towns, of their plan, their, rules, and their, application form for projects. So we should all take one of these and,
Pass these around?
sure. I think I kept one of these.
You have one already? have
Thank
one
you
already?
for getting these together. I got all this stuff.
You have it already?
Yeah, you.
Actually, there's 5, at least 5. This is big, so it should be.
You have one, just.
Last two?
3.
Kevin, could you pass me one of each? Yeah, there you go.
Did you get this yet? I think we have this already.
Oh, yeah, no, we have that.
Libby, did you get these?
May I have that?
Which one do you need? Yep.
Both, actually, both. Yeah, I have that.
Okay, so, you got these together, Elaine?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The big work, I think, in the next year is going to be the development of a charter. We have the administrative budget as well, but there's no money in the account yet. Is anybody aware of ways that we can borrow on a city, or is there a way to do that ahead of collections? Or are we operating with nothing until,
Unless the mayor sends in an appropriation to the council, which he hasn't done yet, there would be no funds available that I'm aware of.
I think we can.
Well, my suggestion would be that we set everything up first. And we'll need a website that people can go on and access the application, so they'll know what they have to do to, we need projects to come to us.
Right.
So in order to do that, we would need a web, so we'll have to hire someone, I would think, to do a
I think
website for us.
we're gonna need the administrative assistant, trifolds, printing even. So there is an administrative cost to all of this, but
Yes.
we are stuck.
Yeah, we can't do any projects right now.
I think we could make a request to the mayor for a budget. I mean, we're not held up to wait for our cash flow till February.
That's good.
My
That's what I'm
recommendation would be to make a request to the mayor of X dollars to begin to do this, and then we would effectively pay the city back with the revenues that would come in come February.
But are we ready to do projects yet?
No.
Well, not projects, but
projects.
just some of this
What?
basic admin
It's just
stuff.
the
Oh, this
mailers,
stuff
the website, the administrative
Oh, I see
assistant.
what you're saying, for the administration, absolutely, yes, we need to ask for
Yeah.
that money up front. Yes, I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about projects, I'm sorry.
No, no.
I think we need a general plan too before we.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think,
that's why I was
Yeah.
saying we have
Yeah.
to do all this.
I think that's a good 9 months out before we're accepting project proposals.
spring.
But in the meantime,
So we make a motion to send a letter from the committee to the mayor requesting an appropriation for,
Is this the request here?
that's the request for our budget based on the collections. So this is
That-
under the mass, the way it's set up in the mass law. We have to identify 10% for each of the 3 areas and plus up to 5% in the reserve account. If we have it through the council by the December rate setting meeting, then we are cleared for the year to move that money however we like between the accounts. We just have to have it set in December.
This
So
is
we're
an estimate.
proposing this based on the assessor's assumption of $450,000, which is based, just an estimate, so those numbers could change.
Could we just request the 22.5 at this point from the
Yes.
mayor for the admin piece?
We could,
And then at least we could ask them to, one, create a department in the budget, the city budget for CPA. 2, so the auditor can start setting that up. And then just make this, at least get a transfer that the council could consider from the mayor for 22,500. That wouldn't exactly be that shouldn't be a budget buster by any means.
good.
I don't think there's 450,000 and all this other stuff laying around.
No, we
that's
don't.
not,
That's gonna have to wait until it comes.
Yeah.
But the 22, they could find that somewhere,
Okay.
from free cash or otherwise.
So, based on our, discussion of rules in other towns and item number 5, also the website, I would like to propose that we submit a request to the city council, to the mayors,
Mayor and council, I guess, effectively.
for an appropriation of our administrative budget that we are also submitting of $22,500 for the fiscal year 18 CPC.
Second thought.
Under discussion, it would go to the mayor first, and then he would send something to the city council if he agrees to it, and to, have that appropriated, so that's how it works.
Do a transfer.
Is there a format to send this request? Should we work
No,
on it next meeting, or?
No, I think just a request. I
Okay.
think if we give him, I would say this plus a motion
The cover letter.
that we would ask Ryan as the administrative assistant to send to the mayor, say that the CPA committee voted, I'm assuming unanimously, to request the mayor to give us the 22,500 as an advance.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
It's a productive bunch.
Yeah.
I like Ryan.
So, who's gonna do the letter, the cover letter?
Ryan is.
Are you? You'll do the cover letter first to accompany this budget?
Sure, I mean, they can put it back together, right? Chair, see.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So now that we have Mike on the email, is everybody else getting the emails? Okay. And, Elaine too.
Yours are getting booted back in
I
like,
know, that's what
I
everybody's
think
telling me.
they spelled your thing wrong, that's why.
Yeah,
I noticed
that's
the
what I
email that they're using for you, it's like, instead of hge.net, it's like heg.net. That's why your thing's
All right.
kicking back.
It's oil,
So somebody gave you,
Yeah.
somebody gave for
oil,
you a goofy
gas, and
email.
electric, HG,
That's what I noticed,
yeah, okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Dyslexia.
So,
So that Mr.
I'm gonna show Ryan how to make a folder anyways, that will be just for us, and with all our contact information, and all he has to do when he wants to send us a full email is just hit that,
Yeah.
and it goes to all of us automatically, so. I'm sure he knows how to do it maybe already, but if he doesn't, I'll help him with that.
So on the, item 4, discussion of rules and plans for other cities and towns, we have the homework here. We are proposing an administrative budget. Is there any further discussion before we can table this until the next meeting? I'm gonna propose.
We're gonna study these, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Something, the, grant money that was made available for was involved. It has to go to RFP to that work, but that's something that's available to us to help. Next meeting. Do is hire a consultant
Great.
to help the CPA put together a CPA plan. So
Oh,
our
good,
committee
yeah.
put together a plan, which takes a lot of the work that we're supposed to be doing in the next year,
I have to do what?
to write our charter.
For our
and
charter mainly, I think.
Come up with a strategy as far as
How we govern ourselves?
no, more so I think to, advertise to the public,
How we're gonna,
Application.
how we're gonna implement the
yeah, we're gonna
CPA.
implement it and.
I mean, to do some, a course of action, to an RFP as to how we would present, Wisteria Hearst, to present, to fill out an application for
I
money.
think it's to help us throughout the year to outreach, to that's just my thinking, I might be wrong about that,
So-
but there's a lot of legwork involved, and that is some of the guidance.
I believe our next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from Monday, from yesterday. Is that correct, Ryan?
Which date are you guys?
The 30th?
The 30th, right?
Yeah.
So tentatively, can we get that on the agenda to speak with?
Andrew Smith.
Yeah, absolutely, I can talk to him. I wanna make sure, I don't want any, conflict if there's a city council meeting, I don't believe there is at this point. I'm positive that there isn't, but possible, so I can tell councilors. Or look at chambers, so that,
Excuse me, Kevin, so it would be 2 2 weeks from yesterday is when you want our next meeting.
Yeah, Mondays is what we agreed as normal. It was just yesterday was out of the ordinary with a debate.
To revert back to the 6:30 PM start time? or
I'd like
are you
6:30
guys-
so I can eat dinner.
Yeah,
and-
me too.
Yeah, 6:30.
Because 6 is difficult for me too.
Stay with
The
6:30.
rush over
Okay,
here.
6:30, yeah.
But
Yeah, I
I'm
think,
almost positive that right now that. I'll just double
Okay.
check just to make sure, but then I'll get it on there.
I think we can address a lot of the other partners with that, so.
May I suggest too that we ask Debbie Brunel, maybe she can help us, put this more into a flyer.
Can we invite
or-
her to come to the next meeting?
Could we invite her to come?
That'd be nice.
Yes, that would be
Yeah.
good if she
If
could.
she came up with
So
that.
Deborah,
Right.
Yeah.
Brunel and, Leanne.
I think those are great, two briefings that we can get next charter meeting.
sure.
Stuff like that, I've asked them to come a couple times.
As another.
They find a reason not to come, so tell them it's mandatory to
We
come.
talked about this
Appointing authority to
prior to
us.
the meeting. I would like to know what, in terms of us and the city council, what is the function or role of the city auditor, the city treasurer, and the city solicitor? How do we utilize them as a source, or are they legally, as representatives of the city? Do they sign our checks? Do they prepare our budgets because we're under the head? I'd be interested to know what their role is.
So, Mr. Falsetti, those agents of the city are resources that we could utilize. We create our budget, we propose plans to the city council, who actually executes and approves plans. The checks would, I assume, come from the treasurer, I'm not sure of the finance structure.
But we're not required to, sign checks by definition.
No, sir.
So the city treasurer would be the signer of the checks.
Yes, we are a vetter, a recommender. We are gonna do the legwork up front to make sure these projects meet the goals and the intent of the program. And then we would recommend them to the city council, who would also debate them and actually approve it.
Again, for reporting purposes as to how we spend our money and how we record it, does the Commonwealth want, well, they may take our word for it, but they may want the city auditor or the city of Hoyoke a letter saying this, I approve of their budget, or the city treasurer of the city of Hoyoke to pass it on to the Department of Revenue, rather than having a subcommittee of the, that's what I'm apprehensive about. We'll be
So-
called upon by the state.
Yeah, would you mind?
So Mike, how this, in my opinion, should work is we, the committee, will vote on what our own departmental budget, because I think this is ultimately going to be a page now in the city budget. We will make a recommendation for our expenses, to have the mayor included in the budget. And, he'll approve it, and the city council will vote those dollars, just basically what we're doing right here with this 22.5. And there'll be accounts set up, the auditor will manage the funds as we approve them. So, for example, he'll say, yes, they have the dollars in their account to spend on X, and those dollars will be transferred. Now, I'll have to talk to the assessors, but I believe that what's gonna happen is there'll be in our revenue accounts that we use ultimately for projects, there'll be a line item in for those dollars, and then we'll just do a transfer to actually pay out any different projects that we approve, and those will be signed off by the treasurer after this board makes a recommendation and the council approves it. So no different than any other municipal appropriation.
Okay. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is gonna, in their publications, they want us, the city, our committee, to forward to the Department of Revenue everything you just said.
Yeah,
I'm
that-
worried about, is it incumbent upon us to track our own money?
Because that already occurs. The Division of Local Services tracks everything that occurs here at the city budget. So we have all the other departments, i.e. police, fire, all these other things. All of these expenditures are subject to review by the Department of Local Services, which is under the Department of Revenue. And they can see any of the transactions that they had, that they meet all of the chapter 44 municipal finance rules, all of that stuff. So that's what the auditor is signing off, that all of this stuff is in compliance with that. Now, the state can go back and check his work theoretically and make sure that it is in fact in compliance. But that's why you're using the auditor and you're having a budget, so that he can actually spit out a report that says, you know, administrative, you put in 22,000 in the administrative, 3,000 of that went to pay for website improvements. There'll be a person, you know, at some point, once this goes in, we actually are gonna have to earmark how much for personnel, how much for expenses, because the city budget is divided between personnel and expenses. So we'll say, okay, stipend for administrative assistant, $5,000, I don't know, whatever that number the committee decides to make. And then you'll have all these different expenses underneath. And then we'll vote to make those requests to the mayor to spend this. He would actually have to do the transfer. And then if the council approves it, and the auditor will sign off and they'll pay the checks.
Anything that this Commonwealth of Massachusetts wants of us, of how we collect and spend our money as a committee, by definition, goes to the treasurer or the auditor. They would supply the cover letter for us
Yeah,
to mail.
we have no checkbook.
We don't have to report.
I mean, we have no reporting requirement.
No.
They're gonna handle the reporting requirement, but with all the rest of the city budget.
The state department, the state is we have to file as a committee 3 reports annually. This committee does. And one of them is fiscal. So I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
the
Well, it's
auditor.
a good question. I think if there's additional reporting requirements that are extraordinary, like, you know, there's some report that we have to set, I'm not familiar with that, then yes, I think the auditor could sign off on some form. We have to do that, periodically with the assessors, for example. They have an overlay account, so anytime there's a report that they have to file that says we gave out this much in tax abatements, or we gave, these type of different changes, and the auditor has to sign off on those things, that the monies were available, or it was in compliance with the municipal finance. So, I'm sure if there's any of those type of forms, we should discuss those, and I'm sure there's a way to track and
Well, Kevin, there is 3, I'm just, again, this is off the website for the Community Preservation Act, Community Preservation Reporting Changes, a surcharge report, a fund report, and an issues report. One coming from an accounting, what they describe as the accounting officer, the assessors.
that's the auditor.
One coming from the assessors department,
Yeah.
and one coming from us, the Community Preservation Committee, that we submit on initiatives. There are 3 separate reports that the state, or the act that was passed by the state, that's incumbent upon us to produce as a committee. I just want to make sure that there's somebody, like an auditor, that can
Yeah.
forward that to us.
And when is that report due? At the end of the fiscal year?
Again, this is off the website. It goes under the heading of Community Preservation Reporting Requirements. There's an annual report, it's the Community Preservation Surcharge Report, which is CP1, Community Preservation Fund Report, which is Form CP2, Community Preservation Initiatives Report, which is CP3. Those are annual reports that must be submitted by September 15th each year in order for the committee to receive trust fund distributions by October 15th.
So we don't have to do that till next September?
Oh, yeah, I know, I just want to make sure
That's all
that
right.
we can avail ourselves to the audit, city auditor, the city treasurer.
These people are here to help us.
Okay, I mean, just,
But those are good points, Mike, and
No, absolutely.
we'll definitely take a look and make sure we're covered under those 3 reports for next September 15th.
Definitely, yeah. Any reporting requirements, we're gonna have to do all that stuff.
yeah, as long as,
Are you on the
we have somebody who's got the funds
Over
and
here
I
with us.
to do it. Those guys, we can go to them and they can supply that information.
Yeah, they have a ton of those type of things, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
I didn't
anybody,
want to interrupt the discussion, but I must have stopped reading the last email incorrectly because I read 6:30.
Oh, yeah.
There was some back and
We
forth.
decided to go with 6 because the council's meeting at 7, so to give ourselves.
so
Sorry for being tardy then.
No problem.
I actually didn't catch that till later today myself.
so whoever came in late, because we already did that, and
Oh, Kevin Jordan.
Libby Hernandez.
Marco Crescentini.
And we elected officers in your absence, so why don't you tell them what, who the officers are?
I am the chair, Ms. Puda is the vice, we have Ms. Panich as a secretary, and I've also offered to be the acting treasurer as I propose her budget here tonight. It's excellent.
We also have to have one public meeting a year, too. In addition to everything, we have to have one public meeting.
We can have a public meeting right before our meeting, we can have a public,
Oh, that's okay, just as long
you
as
know.
we have it.
Yes,
That's required.
every time we meet, we can have people come in and talk if they, we could do that, this is a suggestion, not,
Yeah, no, I mean, but I'd like us to say, like, this particular date is our annual public meeting. So when we pass it into the state,
Yeah.
they'll say, this is the time, the date, this is who attended, as our annual public meeting, just to make sure.
we need projects first.
Yeah, no, that's okay, but I just want to tell everybody, we have to, the state demands that of us.
Yeah.
That's good information, Mike.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could I make another suggestion? I think we should vote to have Ryan Allen be our clerk. I make that,
Is that what we're calling a clerk or administrative assistant?
or whatever he wants us to call it. But it would be a paid position.
Yeah, we should think about a stipend for that position,
Yes.
and, Mr. Chairman, you should negotiate.
I was gonna say, yeah, well, let's see what do we got here?
Because we're looking at, what, 2 meetings a month?
For a while,
Until we
yeah.
get it going, I think,
Yeah.
too. So,
Then,
Pardon me for interrupting, Mr. Chairman. This is, by way of an example, this is, anybody can go online. This is from the town of Agawam, and what they requested for their clerk. Here's a list of essential responsibilities: perform research, monitor the progress of the applications, post all agendas, arrange all details for the annual meeting. This is just what Agawam does, if you guys want to.
Like a job description?
It's a job, thank you, in the word, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And this is the town of Stoughton.
That's-
But they do have a rather lengthy requirement for their clerk, and it goes into rather good detail.
Yeah.
So whoever does this job must be familiar with how to compose and go by the rules by the state and the city, and also how to every month we're gonna get a budget, how to present our budget, what do we have, what have we expended, what we have coming up. This is the town of Stoughton, and they have a rather lengthy requirements, so
Yes,
before we.
there's Westfield's in here too with the.
Yeah, so I mean.
so Mike, what I think Mike is saying is, let's not be hasty, that this is actually a big job, and I think we should post it.
Yeah, here's, if you want, Mr.
And
Chairman,
we
there's,
might want to consider what requirements we want to have for our clerk, because the other possibility here is, Ryan is doing a piece of this job, and we've been relying on him. I know that several other existing city officers have offered to help in some capacity or another. I've spoken to Andrew Smith, he is already knowledgeable about the open space component, and he would be happy to do some of the work. I think that one of the people who is now helping with historical commission, whose name I'm always blanking on, has some background in historical preservation, and she would be interested in helping it out. And
Olivia?
no, this is one of the staff. And
Oh.
she's relatively new, and I haven't worked with her, which is why.
Well, if I may, the clerk, we don't want any of those people to be our clerk. They should be our, when we do a project, they're gonna be our
Technical.
And when we do our master
advisors
plan,
or
they're gonna
whatever,
be
so,
helpful.
yes,
But I haven't
definitely.
looked over
Yeah.
the list of responsibilities on the job description that's circulating. And what I was suggesting is, it may be possible, we may want to post it, as our chair just suggested. Complex job, it may be more than we've been asking Ryan to do. But we may also want to say, all right, this is plus smaller jobs for staff who will up the responsibilities here. So my suggestion is that we maybe take a look at these models and see what other towns are actually asking their staff to do, and whether we do think it's one job, So, is it in fact Ryan's job? If it isn't, is it Ryan's job and somebody else's?
Continuing with that, just so we all clear on how Ryan ever even got involved in this, was at my request, because we need to be taking minutes.
Yes.
We need to be doing grunt work, we need to be sending out notices, we need to be notifying people of things. We need just the basic mechanics of operating a committee like all the other committees. So, I would think that it would stop just about there. As far as finance, financial analysis and preparing this and preparing that, keeping in mind, Mike, it's $22,500 is your administrative budget. So don't spend it all in one place. I was thinking something along the lines of $5,000 for all this grunt work of doing the minutes, running around, making phone calls, getting in department heads, gathering documents, doing all this stuff twice a month and attending all of these meetings, plus doing grunt work during the day, which is somewhat, compatible to his duties that he's doing. I've talked to him, and I'll let Ryan speak for himself, but that would be, I think, acceptable to him. As far as all this other stuff about, major, presentations to the committee and doing all this, high-level financial analysis or different things that clerks, and I've seen some of those out there. Some people do this as almost like a quasi part-time to full-time type job. I think that the committee could perhaps solicit that in addition, maybe if you wanted to say, okay, we want to have another person for 10 grand a year, or maybe it's the person that we get from conservation with working compatible with somebody else, and maybe post that as a type of position. But I think that's a pretty good deal to have someone just doing all the committee grunt work.
And we can always transition if we decide that we have
Wanna go another direction.
greater needs in what Ryan is able to.
Yeah.
So we're proposing a clerk and then possibly an administrative assistant, which is more encompassing and engaged with the committee work charter.
Yeah.
Is that how I understand it?
So,
Makes sense to me, because he needs to prepare our agenda, let us know, remind us of the meeting, send out the emails. It's gonna be quite
Take the
involved.
minutes.
Take the minutes.
so I'd like to make a motion to hire Ryan at the $5,000 a year, with an understanding that we may be modifying that job description in the future and perhaps soliciting a full-time administrative assistant.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Discussion? Favor? Okay, the final item on the agenda is the website. I'm going to propose that we table this until the next meeting and look into our options, whether we're getting our own independent website or off of the existing city infrastructure. Is there anybody that feels that they could do some background? I'll talk to my resources, but I'm not.
We should accept proposals maybe from 3 different website designers. I would
The other thing,
think that,
how about a page on the city website?
Yeah, I like the
Get Eileen Pooler, and maybe have her come and see what we could pay her.
we could do that, but the city of Westville has their own website. It's beautiful, it's got all this information on how to do a project, the application.
I think initially, the city website, this is just has come a long way in recent years. Water bills on there, and it's much easier. I think our establishment, we can get the information out to the taxpayers of Hoyoke of what to expect with the billing. It would be a nice public sounding board to get out quickly.
And we wouldn't have to look into web hosting.
Yeah.
So can I just ask, who administers the city's website? It's a employee of the
G&E,
city?
in conjunction with, I believe Eileen at one point was doing updates.
Speak with Eileen Pooler.
Yeah, maybe we can invite her and have a similar
We
conversation.
could probably talk to like Rory and some of those folks, unless any of that's changed, maybe, Rory and some. But last I knew, that was going down.
So now that Ryan is our clerk, can you help us look into that?
Yep.
Sure, so you're thinking of having Eileen Pooler come into the next
next meetings fill it up pretty quick, but, I
least
would
at
like
some
to make
point
sure
create
we're
a
definitely,
page
yeah.
to put all these documents and things that we wanna get out to the public, and, cause you're already posting all of our meeting notices and stuff online, and clerk's office and stuff.
Like a general feed that comes with the website.
Which meets our 24/7 requirement, and then the other one is they get posted in front of the clerk's office. But that doesn't meet our 24/7 requirement, unfortunately, because it has to be a location the public has 24/7 access to. And that's why we've passed an ordinance to have a bulletin board out in front of City Hall, and for reasons unknown to me that can't be purchased, and there's big rigmaroles about this, but. Because if the website ever goes down, we've actually had to have meetings canceled. So, and that's not
But
a
adding
pretty,
a page
that's
to
not
the
a pretty
website,
picture.
that
Go ahead,
shouldn't be a
Mike.
bad
Mr. Chairman, is Ryan going to, send a plan for putting on Ohio City, Ohio's website, our public meeting notices and so on and so forth?
He is going to coordinate the person who can do that to come here and speak.
Okay.
He
So-
is going
He's
to-
already
You're
posting
already
everything to the
posting.
website now, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's already doing
Yeah.
that.
okay, so we meet the meeting law of 48 hours
Oh,
and
yeah.
all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So
Like this meeting, all
Yeah,
these
good on
meetings,
that, yeah.
that's already being done.
Chairperson, if I'm not mistaken, this is a part of the city of Holyoke, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we be on that list of departments? When you click on that link to the right and all the city departments come up, wouldn't we just be another new department?
That's what we're advocating, that
Yeah.
we get
We
going
start
with.
that one.
Yeah, but not just a link or not just
Right.
posting on the
Yeah.
calendar, but an actual department. And that's where people go look for it and where people find it.
What was her name, Elaine? That's who administers that page, and we're gonna get a link.
But there was some discussion about creating a separate website or.
Yeah.
I mean, it just totally makes sense to do the city website.
Right, but I think that eventually we might be wanting to have our own website, but only because I saw the city of Westfield and it looks really great, but, I mean, we don't, you know, that's for discussion, we'll see what happens, at least we'll start with what we're gonna start with, and, we can always think of doing that later if we don't find that it's adequate enough, or we want more, because, you know, here's the thing, we wanna promote ourselves, not us personally, but what we do, we wanna promote that so people can see they've paid money from their taxes, from their hard-earned money for projects, and they wanna see results. They want us
I
to
agree.
do good things, and they want us to, exactly.
But,
So,
you know, I'm certainly not an expert on this, but my understanding is, once you have a website and you have the capacity to add pages to it, we should be able to build out pages so that it does all of those things without having to go through having our own independent. It should look just as beautiful, or it can look just as beautiful. The only question then would be, are we messing with the city's overall look? Are we messing with the branding? But once the page is there,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Is that it?
Yes?
Oh, very efficient crew.
we should tell,
All in
Ryan
favor?
what's on the agenda,
Aye.
what's gonna be on the next agenda.